application for federal student aid. Mackenzie from the University of Mount Union is very well versed in the FAFSA and is going to present to you on what it is and all of the steps that you need to take as a student because you and your parents both will have to do parts of the FAFSA. And so we wanted to make sure that you were given a presentation. Please respect her time for coming out here to present to you. And also know that we are recording this because we are going to be pushing it out on the Clipper app so that your parents can have access to the same presentation that you are being given this morning. So please be respectful. Please make sure that you are paying attention because whether you understand it or believe it, this is very important information that each and every one of you are going to need as you move into your post-secondary plans, whether it's college, trade school. So please make sure that you're giving her all of your attention. So go ahead, Mackenzie.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me okay right here with this? Hi, everybody. As was said, my name is Mackenzie. I'm a financial aid counselor with the University of Mount Union. That being said, yes, the FAFSA form for your application for federal student aid is important, whether you're going to like a trade program, a 4-year college, a 2-year program. It's very important to complete, and today we're going to talk about that. If you have any questions, you can save them to the end. What would you prefer if they interrupted or any preference? Okay, I don't mind. If you have any questions, by all means, raise your hands. We can stop for a moment. My name is Mackenzie again, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So this is the agenda, what we'll be covering today, the structure of the FAFSA form, what is financial aid, what is the FSA ID, how do you complete that, the FAFSA itself, how do you compare financial aid offers, what if your financial situation changes, and what are questions you should be asking. So again, if you have any questions, raise your hand and we can stop. So what is financial aid? Does anybody know? Any guesses? Okay, student loans, that's a part of it. Financial aid is how you're going to be paying for the cost of that 2-year program or the 4-year program or your trade school. So financial aid is what you'll need when it comes to paying for your college education or your experience after high school. Types of financial aid. You have your scholarships, your talent and athletic awards, your grants, your loans, and your federal work study. The first two, number 1 and number 2 on this list, those are based on your academics. And then if you did any like esports, if you joined a sports team, anything like that, an arts program that was going to offer you any scholarships or financial aid, it's very important to note deadlines. So if you're going to try out for a team, you want to submit your portfolio for review of submission to see if you receive any financial aid. Very important you pay attention to deadlines to see when those are going to be. So, sources of financial aid. You have the state of Ohio, you have the federal government, you have colleges and universities, private sources and employers. So, raise your hand. Anybody have a job? Okay, quite a few of you. It doesn't hurt to ask your employer if there are any scholarship opportunities, any benefits for you going to a higher education program. The worst they can tell you is no. So ask those employers, see what they offer you as a high school student going into college. That being said, colleges and universities, touch on that a little bit. Ultimately, those are your talent, athletic awards, and those merit scholarships based on your grades in high school. So it's very important these last few months of high school, you're paying attention to your grades, working on if you wanted to have a higher GPA, work on that now. That way you can potentially receive more financial aid to pay for your school. Employers, we covered that. Federal government, state government, those are sometimes your free opportunities. So like your Pell Grants, your OCOG, your Ohio College Opportunity Grants, anything that's going to assist you in paying for your college from either a federal level or a state level. Okay, FAFSA itself. Does anybody know what it stands for? Yeah. That's okay, you were close. You were close. Free application for federal student aid. So I only ask you because the FAFSA form is free. You should never have to pay for the form. This is what that logo actually looks like. So it's very important that you don't type .com. If you type studentaid.com, that takes to a page where you actually have to pay for the form to be done. You don't want to do that. It is a free form from the federal government. So make sure you go to studentaid.edu. Very important you note that. With the FAFSA form, you have a question?
Yeah, so I was at McDonald's.
Mm-hmm. I don't know about that, but I know they have great scholarship opportunities. They actually offer tuition benefit as well. So like they'll actually pay for you to go to school. So it's important. I know it works on a 4-year level, like for UMU, but I do know it works for other like 2-year programs as well, because we've had students where they'll pay for their school tuition and McDonald's will reimburse them. But there are stipulations with that, so you'd want to ask your supervisor. I know students have reached out to like the district manager level just to confirm, but they do offer those programs. Any other questions on that? No? Okay. So this is what the information you'll need when completing the form. So for those of you who work a job, you'll want to have your 2024 tax information. If you do file taxes, if you're a 1099, if you have W-2s, you'll need those as well. You'll need recent bank statements, records of untaxed income, if you were a 1099, things like that. Social security numbers, records of investments and assets, driver's license or alien registration number if you're not a US citizen. That being said, it's important that both a student and a parent both have this information. Now, it will import automatically from the IRS your financial information, but you will have to have these things with you in order to successfully complete the form. Are there any questions on that? And if you don't have a driver's license also, you can use your temp ID or if you're state of Ohio ID, because I know some students do use those. So the FSA ID, Federal Student Aid ID, it's what that stands for. This is where you'll go to create your account. So again, studentaid.gov, instead of clicking login, you'll hit create account and get started. So you'll need this account in order to actually complete the form itself. Without having this done, you can't do your FAFSA form. And again, that's on a 4-year or a 2-year level, even though sometimes those trade schools want you to do the form now. But you'll hit get started, fill out the free application federal student aid. Now for your parent, if your parent has an account maybe from a few years ago, or maybe if you have an older sibling in college, they may have an account already. So if they're not sure, they can always hit log in, and it won't let you create 2 accounts. So it's very important that when you're doing this, you as a student have your own account, your parent has their account as well. Are there any questions on that? Okay. Another thing I want to note on this, with creating your account, you have to use your birthday, your social, and your name. So I know there's a lot of numbers being thrown in there, but it's very important you don't mistype any of those numbers for your parent or your student, because it's very difficult to fix. So it's very important that you're aware of what you're typing in, you're checking with your parent. If you need to wait, do that, because it is difficult to fix. So creating an FSAD, we talked about a lot of this already. Make sure you're using separate accounts, making sure you're checking those numbers again. Don't mix up the phone numbers, the birthdays, or the socials. Make sure you're using separate emails. And a big thing here, make sure you're not using your high school email, because eventually you won't have access to it. Use a personal email address, because you will have to have one of those for adult life. Again, double checking that information, not using your high school email, and making sure that your social security number matches on the form. Okay, any questions on that? No? Okay. This slide here is showing you the 2-step verification process that happens when you log into the FAFSA form itself. So it is pretty annoying, but every time you log into the form, you have to log in basically twice. So username and password, it'll verify your phone number, you'll get a text, you have to enter that code, you'll enter a code through your email as well. And some people use the Authenticator app because it is like a 3rd layer of security, but it is a very safe way to get into your form. Again, that's why it's important to make sure you're using your phone number, your email, your parents' phone number, your parents' email. So without having that code, you can't get into the form. Just be prepared for that as a student and let your parents know as well. And that second box there is just explaining how you'll enter the code through your phone number and your email. So what's exciting for you all today, the FAFSA form actually opened early. You'll have to do the form every year, and it is now legally required to be opened October 1st of each year. Did anybody else start the form yet? You have? Okay. Has anybody created their FSA ID? No? That's okay. That's okay. You can do all of those things now. You can actually do them today if you'd like, when you go home this evening with your guardian or your parent. But you're completing the 26-27 FAFSA form because here we are. Going into college is pretty exciting. That being said, this is what it looks like. The line up there that says beta testing was from a few weeks ago. But again, if you logged into the site today, it's going to say complete your 26-27 FAFSA form today, because that's the year that you'll be going into your higher education program. Are there any questions on the timeline?
Just for clarification.
Yeah.
Students have to create their FSA ID to be able to complete the form. Is that correct?
Yes, and there is no longer a waiting period. So your parent and yourselves as students, you can complete the form and then go right into starting the FAFSA as long as you have access to your email. So there used to be a waiting period of like 2 or 3 days, but now you can go ahead and just do it immediately. So that is something you can do now. And actually doing it early, we recommend because you can send them out to schools a lot faster. We'll get into that, but it is helpful in getting your form done sooner to see what your college experience is going to cost you down the road. It's a good question. Anything else?
No, you clarified that. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, no problem. But again, this is what it looks like, studentaid.gov, and we'll go from there with getting the form. This is what it looks like itself. This is the structure of the form. So we start at the green and we kind of work our way this way. The structure of the form itself is you're going to log in. We always recommend the student does their portion first. It's a little confusing when you log in as a parent because a parent portion, everything's going to show up blank. And what's nice about the form is on the very top left corner, it's going to say parent of Mackenzie. Like if I was doing my form, so parent of Mackenzie. Or it's going to say Mackenzie's FAFSA form when I'm doing my portion. Oops, sorry. But that being said, it is helpful in knowing which side of the form you're on because there is 2 different sides. So there's a student portion and a parent portion, and essentially they mirror this. So you're going to sign in, provide your consent. The consent portion is what's going to pull your information from the IRS if you've worked, if you've collected any financial information that would be reported to the IRS. Personal circumstances, we'll talk about that. That's if you have gone through like a guardianship change, your parent has lost their job, you have dependents on your own if you're actively serving in the military, but we'll talk about that down the road. You invite your parent to the FAFSA, that's where that link comes. So there's a linking process where you are doing your form and the parent does their form. So that's the linking process. Completing your demographics as a student, who are you? Basically what that is, you're filling out your own information. And then in the college section, you can actually list up to 20 colleges. That's why we say it's kind of nice to get it done early, because every school you list on that section, they're going to reach out to you. So whoever you'd like to list, feel free to list it there, and they'll reach out to you as a student. Any questions on how it all works? No? Okay. We talked about this briefly. This is student personal circumstances. If any of these 10 things apply to you, like we talked about, if you're actively serving in the military, if you have dependents or children of your own, if you were in foster care, if you had a guardianship change, you may have had a parent who had abandoned you, things like that. If you mark any of these boxes, your FAFSA form will be flagged, and it has to be taken under review to verify that information. So if you do mark any of these boxes, just note the 20 schools that you list, they're going to be reaching out to you. So be prepared to answer their questions. They may need documents of support, things like that. Also, if you make a mistake, this is also easy to fix. As we've seen it, students make mistakes, they're not sure what had happened, but it is common and it is easy to fix. But if none of those apply, just click none of those apply and continue with the form. Any questions on that? If you were abandoned or if you had gone through the foster care system. Maybe you had turned 18 at that point, things like that. Yeah, any other questions? No? Okay. So, parent of record on the FAFSA. This can get kind of tricky, and I will say, because I know this is being recorded for parents, if you're having trouble finding out who your contributor is, the contributor is the parent who's the most financially supportive on the form. That being said, there's a thing called the Parent Contributor Wizard on studentaid.gov. It can help you identify which parent should be on the form. So it is a very helpful resource. That being said, if you have a biological or adoptive parent, if you're not married but living together, both parents need to be on the form. That means both of your parents have to have an FSA ID to log in and to complete the form with you as a student. Any questions before I continue? I know it can get a little tricky. Okay. You have a biological parent who is divorced and never remarried. You must provide financial support for the parent that is the most financially supportive within 12 months. So if you have one parent who's more supportive over the other, one parent. If you do not live with that parent, but say it's a mom or dad type scenario, if your mom is more financially supportive over your dad, your mom's going to be on the FAFSA. If you have a parent who is divorced and the one parent has remarried, your step-parent then has to be on the FAFSA form itself. Just keep that in mind. And then also, if your parents are married and they filed jointly in 2024, only one parent needs to be on the form. So I know none of you may understand that, and if you do, great. But again, that Parent Contributor Wizard is a great resource to help you figure all this out if you are having any issues with identifying that parent. Any questions before I continue? No? Okay. This is what the form kind of looks like for that invitation process. So the student here, Rhea, they've sent the invite to the parent. This is what the email looks like. So the parent will then log in and accept the invitation. Without this happening, your form is not complete and you can't submit the form. So it's very important that your parent gets this email invite in order to complete the FAFSA form itself. So without that happening, you're just kind of in this lull of not really sure what's going on. And the FAFSA form will expire. So it's very important that you stay on top of it to make sure that you're paying attention to what's happening so that your FAFSA form doesn't delete or anything like that. Okay, so whenever you've completed the form itself, this is the FAFSA submission summary. If you have successfully completed it, you'll see this number called the Student Aid Index, the SAI. It has balloons, confetti, it says congratulations. If you don't get that, you have an issue. So if you want, you can always give us a call. We actually help students who are not even interested in the University of Mount Union because this is such a tricky form. But if you would like assistance, feel free to reach out and we can help you. But again, you're ultimately looking for that SAI, that Student Aid Index number. And this will actually tell you if there's any issues with the form itself, whether you marked one of those 10 items, you need to review your FAFSA form. So this is a really great resource if you are having any questions about your form itself. Am I good on time? Okay, perfect. So verification, does anybody know what this is? No? Okay. Verification happens on a federal level. So it's nothing that you did wrong, nothing that your parent did wrong. It's actually just a second step that your form has been flagged. So we get these all the time, and it's actually happening more now that the chances of fraud are increasing with the studentaid.gov site. So in order to verify your information, verification happens. The school, you list up 20 schools again. If you're flagged, likely all 20 schools will see that, and you'll have to verify with 20 schools. Now, you don't have to provide information for 20 schools, but it is important to know. Verification essentially is just a second review, nothing to worry about, no need to panic. If you have any questions, just call that school and say, hey, how can I get this resolved? So a bit of a timeline for you. Your FAFSA determines that SAI number we talked about. That being said, whenever you list those 20 schools, or if you list 5 schools, or just even one, that school is going to receive your FAFSA form. They get a copy of it. They then provide you with a financial aid award offer, which is going to come in the mail. You may get 100 of them, but it is very common. That being said, it kind of shows you a breakdown of what to expect in terms of cost, what they can provide you in terms of financial aid, and then you would either review that and you would either accept or decline. Are there any questions with that process? So keep in mind, most schools won't actually send out that financial aid offer, that second step, until about December. So if you're applying for schools now, if you've already done your FAFSA form, if you're in the process of it, you may not hear anything until December, possibly January. So just keep that in mind.
Just want to interject real quick.
Yeah.
I do know that some of our seniors have already started the college application process. So if you're sitting here and you've already submitted your college application, that's great. You're on time, you're on track for that. The next step for you is going to need to be the FAFSA if it isn't. Because they will not be able to get to that award, financial aid award letter until you have your completed FAFSA, okay? So once you get through that college application, then the next step is the FAFSA. So you'll want to make sure that you are on track to be ready to fill out the FAFSA with your parents if you've already completed your college application. So that is the next step. So that's where that award letter will come into play. So once you indicate those schools that you've already applied to on your FAFSA application, that's when you will start earning those, you'll start receiving those award letters from the university because they'll have that information to be able to provide you with what they're willing or able to support in a financial aspect from how you completed your FAFSA.
And that's where those deadlines really come to play. So if you have a tryout deadline, if you have a portfolio submission deadline, even esports, some schools have a deadline for that, whether you're trying out or submitting something for an esports program. It's very important that you pay attention because once a deadline is set, it's unlikely you can go past that deadline. So just keep that in mind, especially for those scholarships as well, because now is the time for you to be applying for those scholarships for next year. So it's kind of crazy, but the higher education world is almost always a year ahead in terms of scholarships and financial aid and things like that. But now we're going to break down what a financial aid offer looks like. So in terms of receiving one, it may come in the mail. For instance, we send them out 3 ways. So we have a text message, an email, and a mailed home copy. That being said, you have your direct costs, tuition, fees, room, and housing. Your indirect costs, which are things you're not billed for. So whether you're needing a laptop, whether you need gas for your car, whether you have to buy a car, things you're not billed for from the university or the school you're going to, but extra expenses that you may want to consider as students and families, especially with moving to school, because it can be kind of an expensive process to pack up and prepare to move into a dorm or an apartment or things like that. Ultimately, adding those 2 things together brings you to your cost of attendance. Now, it's very important whether you decide to drive to school, commute, live off campus, or live on campus, wherever you're attending, that this number can change, it can vary. So you may lose a portion of your scholarship, you may gain more in financial aid, whether you're commuting or driving or living in home or staying off campus in an apartment. Keep in mind that that can change your financial aid situation. So your cost of attendance, which is like your housing, your fees, those things you may not be expected to pay for, take that minus the SAI number from your FAFSA. That's how you get your financial need, which comes to play on a university or a school side with how much we can afford to give you as a student, what you're able to receive in terms of financial aid. It also grants you the eligibility for your federal Pell Grants, your FSEOG, and your state grants. So without completing the form, you won't know if you're eligible for any of those free programs from a federal or a state level. So it's very important to know that, and at least completing the form, you're going to receive eligibility. So it doesn't hurt to complete it to see what you'll be eligible for. Okay, does anybody know anything about loans? No? Does anybody know how they work? How does a loan function? Okay, nobody? That's okay. So a loan, just by completing the FAFSA itself, you are eligible for a federal direct loan from the federal government in your name as a student. So not your parent, not your guardian, not anything like that, your name as a student. So the interest rate for this loan typically changes in July. For this upcoming year, it's going to be about 6.39%. So keep that in mind, 6%. It is very important to know that in terms of going into the higher education world. In terms of a subsidized loan, your subsidized loan, I call it the S loan, is the loan that the interest is going to be locked in. So the government's going to pay that interest while you're enrolled in school. That being said, your unsubsidized loan, what I call the U loan, is the loan that's going to build that interest. So in total, as a student, you're eligible for $5,500 between these two loans your first year going into school. So keep that in mind. You can decline those loans or accept those loans. You don't have to accept them if you don't want to. You can actually accept a portion of the loan. You don't have to go the full $5,500. But keep that in mind in terms of going into college, like how are you going to pay for school? Do you want to accept these loans? Talk to your families about these things, see what they're going to help you with, what they're not going to help you with. You do have options on your own as well, though, as a student. This is what a financial aid offer looks like. So as we talked about your financial aid changing, the student's going to live on campus. So it's very important to know this student's going to receive the full amount of their scholarship because they are living on campus. But this is just kind of a visual breakdown for those who like a visual. So you have your grants and scholarships, which is what we know you're eligible for from the FAFSA form. Your direct cost, what we talked about, your tuition, your fees, your room and housing. And that brings you to your balance. We break it down your balance without any loans, just your net balance, and then your balance with loans. There's that $5,500 in loan funding we talked about, and then how it's the second balance with the loans. And then your federal work study, and then there's the indirect costs we talked about as well. So you're not billed for any of those things, but those are costs to consider when moving to school, attending a program, things like that. So your direct cost minus your grants and scholarships brings you to your net price, which if we go back here, for this student, it's going to be the gray boxes. So that would be your net price. And something we always say, don't judge a school by its sticker price because you never know what you're going to be eligible for in terms of financial aid, what you'll receive from the FAFSA itself. As we can see here, School A and School B looks like the more expensive school, right? So both of these students completed their FAFSA form. They know what they're eligible for. School B is more expensive based off of this example. But we can see here that School B compared to School A, School B was able to give them more financial aid, which brought the cost down a few $100s less than School A. So keep in mind, if you really like a school but you're not sure if it's going to work financially, just apply and see what they can offer you in terms of a student. Okay? This is primarily for parents, but if your parent or your family goes through any changes, job change, income change, if there's a separation, if there's a marriage, anything like that, reach out to your school to see what they can help you with in terms of financial aid. Not only just unemployment, but if you have any financial changes, especially because we're looking at information from 2 years ago. The FAFSA form looks at information from 2024. So between 2024 and 2026, if anything did change, call the school and let them know. That's all it takes is a conversation. Any questions about that? No? Okay. We talked about this a lot, but definitely apply for those scholarships now. If you're a STEM major, there are things like Choose Ohio First, your local high school guidance counselor as well, if you had any now have had a divorce, you've lost your job, you have a new job, things like that. So a bit of some homework for you all today. I know you love homework. That being said, you can create your FSA ID. Do that today if you'd like. You do the FAFSA form, look at your scholarship deadlines. You're applying for those schools, reviewing that financial aid offer we broke down, and completing your requirements for that school, and then deciding where you want to go. So again, the form is available today. You can complete your FSA ID today. So the sooner you get these things done, it's only going to help you in terms of figuring out what to expect in terms of cost moving down the road. So plan to do it as soon as you can, and it's only going to help you. This is our building. If you've ever been to our campus, it's in the background there, the Gartner Welcome Center. Again, we help all students. You don't necessarily have to be coming to the University of Mount Union. We help students going to a 2-year college, a 4-year program, anything like that. We have social media, so we have a Facebook page. I'm not sure if all of you may be on Facebook, but your parents are. This is the QR code that will take you to our page. We offer a lot of general options and resources for families and how financial aid works. We break it down pretty easy for you. You have a question? Yeah. Tell me when to stop. Is this it? Let me know whenever you're ready. Oops, sorry.
We're also going to put this information out on Google Classroom. So Mackenzie has been kind enough to she'll share it with me so that I can push this out so that you'll have access to that QR code as well.
And this is our team. If any of you come to our building, this is our contact information as well. We're pretty friendly. We help anyone coming to any school, so feel free to give us a call. And then if anybody has any questions.
Do we have any questions? All right, before we wrap this up, if you don't mind, Mackenzie, I'm going to just do a quick overview of what I took away, important pieces of information that I took away from this presentation. So just clarifying, the first step obviously is going to be that FSA ID. Both you and your parents are going to have to complete that, okay? After you do the FSA ID, you'll each complete your separate parts of the FAFSA application. So please make sure that you know it's your responsibility to do your form and your parents will do theirs. Am I right to saying that when the student completes their form, they will get access to invite their parents to the form, correct?
Yes, it's actually within the form. So it's like the second or third section. You'll complete that for your parent. You'll invite your parent, and that invitation process has to match your parents' account information. So that's why it's helpful to do it together and then finish your section as a student and then have your parents start their section.
Okay, also in that FAFSA application for the students, you're going to be given the opportunity to send up to 20 colleges or universities. Again, you're going to want to make sure that those of you who are already through the college application process, that every school that you are considering, that you would like an award letter from, that you are adding those colleges or universities to your FAFSA form, okay? The student aid index is going to be the indicator that you've completed your form. So that's going to be that success message that you're going to get at the end of the form. So if you're going through that, just wanted to make sure. Sounds kind of juvenile to explain this, but I think it's important. When you get your award letters and you see a Parent Plus loan on that, and then you see that subsidized or unsubsidized loans that are being awarded to you, know that your parents are responsible for the Parent Plus loan. And any unsubsidized or subsidized loans that are awarded to you as the student will be in your name, and you will be responsible for that loan at the end of your college career. And then also the biggest thing for me is making sure that you remember what email you are using when you complete your FSA ID and your FAFSA application, because that is where you are likely going to get your award letter sent to. Obviously, the University of Mount Union will send it in 3 different forms, but some schools may only email it to you, so you need to make sure that you write down everything. I always tell seniors at this time of the year, you should create a file folder of some sort, okay? If you're applying to colleges, make sure that you have, like, for each college that you know what email you've used. Write down your password so that you have this, especially for the FAFSA, because this is something that you are going to have to do every year that you are in college. This is not a one time and you're done. This is every year you have to go on and you have to resubmit, recertify your FAFSA application. So you want to make sure that you're keeping all of that information and you have access to that. The last thing that I want to go over, and I'm not going to go over it in detail at all, but we passed this out to you for a reason, okay? Everything that was on the PowerPoint is pretty much summarized here for you, and this is all really important information. If you look down on the front under the, on the left-hand side where it explains awards and offers, this is going to be really important for you guys. Understanding the difference between the subsidized loans and the unsubsidized loans. Also understanding the Parent Plus loans, okay? And when you get that award letter, this is going to be very good information for you to have in front of you. Because what you don't want to do, maybe you do, it's personal choice, but knowing that if it's a subsidized loan, it's not accruing interest while you're in school, okay? But if you select or accept an unsubsidized loan, knowing that that $5,500 that Mackenzie talked about in the presentation, that's accruing interest every year that you have it, okay, while you're in school. So that $5,500 is not just going to be $5,500 at the end of your 4 years in college. So understanding what you guys are accepting when you're going through your award letters and you're giving that like green light, go ahead, I'm going to take it. So this is really important information. Please make sure you hang on to this. Those of you who got crafty with yours during the meeting, this is going to be very helpful to your parents as well. So if you decided to fold it up during the presentation, I have nice fresh copies up here that I would like for you to come and get so that your parents can have something that they could read, because this will be very helpful to them, okay? Last thing that I will say, we do not have it scheduled yet, but we will be inviting the University of Mount Union to come out to do a FAFSA completion night here on our high school campus. It is a nice opportunity, especially for first-time students and parents to that college process. The FAFSA application can be rather intimidating, okay? And so we want to make it easy. We want to make it comfortable, so we will have a night scheduled. We are going to ask that your parents call into the high school and confirm that they are going to attend, because ladies and gentlemen from the University of Mount Union are taking an evening off of their, out of their busy lives to come in and help us out. So we want to make sure that we're making it worth their while to come out and help all of you and your families. So once we get that date out, I'm going to push it out on the Google Classroom. It'll also go out on the Senior Class Remind, and we will put it out on the Clipper app, okay? So there will be a deadline that your parents will be given to call in and make sure that they schedule to secure their spot. And when we do this, the FAFSA completion night, you are required to be here with your parent. So what will happen is if you want to sit with a financial aid counselor to do the FAFSA with you, we need both of you here. Well, all of you that need to be there. So understanding your family dynamic and what the scenario is, you may need both parents, you may only need one, but that individual that's going to be responsible, or parent that's going to be responsible to fill out the FAFSA, is going to need to be here with you. Okay? Any questions on that? Mackenzie, do you have anything else that you would like to share out?
No, it is correct. That handout is basically a quick, kind of recap of what we talked about on here. I always tell people, if you're not a paper person, at least take a picture of the front and back of it so that you'll have it for future reference. I always tell a lot of students, because we're moving into like a paperless world, put all your information in like the Notes app of your phone. I have a lot of students that come into the office, they're brand new, they have no idea what's happening. Utilize your resources, put everything in your cell phone if you have to. A lot of families will use a notebook, they have bringing in their files, the paperwork they have. It's helpful now to stay organized in the beginning, that way you're organized whenever you're doing this each year, because you will have to do this each year. And again, if you can't make that night, if it is a bit of a drive for you to come to campus, we can actually help you over the phone. We can help you with a virtual appointment. There's no commitment with attending the university, so that's important to know. We've helped students with issues with not being able to complete their form. There's no commitment with attending the university. You can come for a visit, have some lunch, and help with the form. It's not a big deal if you don't want to attend, so that's important to stress. But we can help you if you are having issues and you can't make that FAFSA night that we're going to get scheduled for you all. So just keep that in mind if you do need the assistance.
Okay, so that wraps up our presentation on the FAFSA. We'll stick around here, myself and Mackenzie will stick
Yeah.
around here if you have specific questions that you have. If you guys don't have any like group questions, we will send you back to third period. Those of you who are leaving for the Career Center, you'll leave at your normal time. So if you drove here because you're at the Career Center, just hang out in the library until